If you want to understand why the global economy feels fragile, stop looking at stock markets and start looking at sand. The era of fighting over oil is over. We have entered the age of fighting over logic. Right now, a quiet but aggressive reorganization of the world is taking place, and it isn't being measured in barrels per day, but in nanometers. We are witnessing the single greatest consolidation of power in human history, yet it is happening in places most people cannot find on a map. For the last 50 years, global stability relied on a simple premise: trade creates peace. The theory was that if nations were economically entangled, they wouldn't attack one another. But that system is breaking down. We are seeing a reversal of globalization, replaced by a concept economists call weaponized interdependence. The very supply chains that were supposed to bind the world together, specifically those involving critical minerals and microchips, are now being turned into choke points. This isn't just a trade dispute, it is a fundamental restructuring of how the world works. The microchip is no longer just a component, it is the new oil. But unlike oil, which can be found in many places, the advanced processing power required to run the modern world comes from a tiny, precarious geography. Consider the scale of this dependency. A modern electric vehicle requires 6 times the mineral inputs of a conventional car. A single smartphone relies on elements mined in 3 different continents, refined in a 4th, and assembled in a 5th. But here is the statistic that keeps intelligence agencies awake at night. Nearly 90% of the processing capacity for the world's most critical raw materials is controlled by a single geopolitical bloc. If that tap is turned off, it doesn't just mean your iPhone becomes more expensive. It means guided missile systems go offline. It means medical imaging devices stop being produced. It means the power grid cannot be upgraded. We have built a digital civilization on a physical foundation that is currently cracking under the pressure of a new, undeclared Cold War. Why does this matter to you, sitting at home? Because the inflation you see at the grocery store or the car dealership isn't just about monetary policy. It is a symptom of this fracture. When supply chains are weaponized, efficiency dies. Costs rise. The just-in-time delivery system that kept prices low for 30 years is being replaced by just-in-case hoarding. You are paying a premium for geopolitical security, whether you realize it or not. The world is reacting with panic. Nations are scrambling to secure their own supplies, rewriting laws and breaking treaties. But while everyone is watching the mines, they are missing the much more dangerous game being played with the technology itself. Because digging the materials out of the ground is the easy part. The real stranglehold is invisible. The most valuable commodity on Earth is no longer gold, and it certainly isn't data, it is precision. We are talking about the ability to manipulate matter at the atomic level, a capability so difficult that only a handful of companies on the entire planet can actually do it. This is the bottleneck of the 21st century. To understand the hidden mechanics of this conflict, we have to look at the psychology of the institutions involved. For decades, the West outsourced hardware manufacturing to focus on software and design, believing that thinking was more valuable than making. This was a strategic miscalculation. By ceding the physical means of production, advanced economies allowed a monopoly to form around the machinery required to build the future. We are currently in a situation where the machines that make the chips, specifically extreme ultraviolet lithography systems, are arguably the most complex objects ever built by humans. They are the printing presses of the digital age. Without them, an economy simply stops advancing. Control over these machines is now the primary objective of foreign policy. Here is the part usually omitted from the headlines. It is not just about blocking access to the finished chips. It is about blocking access to the physics. New export controls are not designed to stop trade. They are designed to freeze the technological development of rival nations in time. It is a strategy of forced obsolescence. By cutting off access to specific software tools and chemical agents, the dominant powers are attempting to ensure that their competitors cannot physically produce the next generation of artificial intelligence. It is a blockade, but instead of ships surrounding a port, it is lawyers and engineers surrounding a patent. This sounds abstract, but it is purely behavioral. It is the prisoner's dilemma played out on a global stage. Every nation knows that cooperation yields the highest collective reward, but the fear of being left behind forces them to defect, to hoard, and to block. This drives a cycle of paranoia. When a country feels its technological sovereignty is threatened, it doesn't back down. It accelerates. It pours billions into domestic production, regardless of the cost. This is why you are seeing massive government subsidies for chip fabs appearing in deserts and cornfields. Your tax dollars are being used to build redundancy, to create an insurance policy against a supply chain collapse that experts believe is becoming inevitable. But the stakes are higher than just economics. The side that controls the fastest chips controls the most powerful AI. And the side that controls the most powerful AI dictates the rules of the next century. But here is the part nobody expected. The harder the blockade squeezes, the faster the alternative systems are being built. History does not repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. In the 17th century, empires went to war over nutmeg and cloves. Today, they are preparing to clash over cobalt and silicon. The commodity has changed, but the desperation remains exactly the same. We are watching the end of the one world internet and the beginning of the splinter net. Global markets are currently pricing in a risk that most politicians are afraid to articulate: the bifurcation of the global technology stack. For 30 years, we operated on a single integrated system. Everyone used the same protocols, the same hardware standards, and the same platforms. That is over. We are moving toward two distinct, incompatible technological ecosystems, one led by the established Western powers and one led by the rising Eastern challengers. This is the Thucydides trap in digital form, the inevitable tension that arises when a rising power threatens to displace a ruling one. But unlike previous conflicts, this one forces neutral countries to pick a side. You cannot plug a device from ecosystem A into a network from ecosystem B. Look at the behavior of the swing states, nations rich in minerals but poor in technology, across Africa and South America. They are currently being courted with aggressive infrastructure deals and debt forgiveness in exchange for mineral rights. It is a modern colonial scramble, but instead of flags, the conquerors are planting processing plants. The historical parallel to the Cold War is undeniable, but the speed is unprecedented. During the Cold War, it took decades to build distinct spheres of influence. Today, a single regulatory change can sever a digital connection between billions of people overnight. For the average investor or business owner, this introduces a new variable. Geopolitical risk is now a permanent line item. Companies that spent decades optimizing for efficiency are now realizing they are dangerously overexposed. If you work in manufacturing, logistics, tech, or automotive, your industry is currently undergoing a painful divorce from its suppliers. This is deglobalization in real time. It creates friction. It breaks the smooth operation of international business. It turns the global market into a series of walled gardens, where entry is determined not by the quality of your product, but by the passport of your CEO. The world is fracturing into trusted zones and untrusted zones. The flow of capital, information, and innovation is being restricted. But as these walls go up, a new unintended consequence is emerging. By trying to isolate the competition, we may have accidentally accelerated their independence. It gets deeper because the fallout isn't just geopolitical, it's changing the very fabric of society. While the headlines scream about spy balloons and diplomatic summits, the real impact is happening in your bank account. We are entering a period of green inflation and tech scarcity that interest rates cannot fix. You cannot print more lithium, and you cannot quantitative ease your way out of a chip shortage. The media discusses this as a diplomatic issue, but it is actually a structural economic shift. We are transitioning from a world of abundance to a world of strategic scarcity. For the last 2 decades, we exported inflation to low-cost manufacturing hubs. We got cheap goods, they got jobs. That deal is dead. Now, as we bring manufacturing back home, a process called reshoring, prices must rise. Labor is more expensive here. Environmental regulations are stricter here. The cost of duplicating supply chains is astronomical. This means that the baseline cost of living is resetting to a permanently higher plateau. The era of cheap electronics and cheap energy is behind us, not because of corporate greed, but because of geopolitical necessity. Consider the impact on the workforce. The push for semiconductor dominance is driving rapid automation. The new factories being built in Arizona, Germany, and Japan are not the factories of the 1950s. They are highly automated cathedrals of robotics. They don't need thousands of blue-collar workers. They need a handful of PhDs. This widens the inequality gap. We are securing the chips, but we are destabilizing the labor market. The tension between national security and social stability is the part the media isn't discussing. We are building a fortress economy, but inside the fortress, the cost of entry is rising for everyone. This affects the stability of your retirement fund, the wait time for your new car, and the availability of green energy solutions for your home. The green transition depends entirely on these minerals. Without cooperation, the cost of saving the planet becomes a casualty of this Cold War. We are prioritizing sovereignty over sustainability. The new Cold War is not about ideology, it is about architecture. It is about who owns the foundation of the modern world. We are locking the gates, hoarding the keys, and preparing for a long winter of disconnect. But while the world is fixated on the silicon chips and the lithium mines, the real transformation is already unfolding, quietly and in a place no one expects. The next battleground isn't digital at all, it's biological, and the race to control that code has only just begun.